Grant Williams, who I was working for free for for that year. He was the gaffer on that show, and he brought me in. That was my first paying gig. I did graduate from school, and this was in the time where MTV was big, and all they did on MTV was show music videos. And I've done probably, I guess, 60, 80 music videos, which was a great way to hone your craft, because back then, when if MTV wanted to if they were going to air something, they would not look at the video. They would only listen to the song, and if they liked the song, as long as the video was legal, meaning your white levels and your black levels, and of course a rating, then they would show it. So you could really, and you can, with music videos, you can cross the line, you can jump cut, you can do whatever you want, as long as the music is great. So that was a really good way for me to get started. And then that led into, I did a lot of kind of, I don't know, bad TV, but kind of exploitation TV. I did a lot of 60 Minutes and 2020s and Barbara Walters, and a lot of hidden camera stuff. And then from there, I started doing, I got into movies and regular TV series, and movies like Dumb and Dumber, and I've done 9 years on a TV series for CBS, which was done here in Utah, called Touched by an Angel. That ran for 9 years, and that's been gone a while, probably before you guys were even born. So, so that's how I got started. But what's interesting is when nowadays you guys have such a luxury. You can just pull out your iPhone and go make a movie. Back when I was in school, you had to save tens of thousands of dollars just to buy Kodak film, and to get it developed, and then rent the camera, and then rent the lights, and it was incredibly expensive, as opposed to now, where you guys, I'm assuming you guys have all done probably, what year in school are most of these, are you guys?
Mostly juniors, few seniors.
Okay, so you've probably done 20, 30, 40 movies at least, I would assume. I would hope. If you haven't, then you may want to go talk to McDonald's, see if there's any management positions open. There are more, Bob, did you know this? There are more students in film school than there are in medical school and law school combined. So the competition out there is extreme. And when I was going to school, I would sit down with these guys at lunch who were, writers, directors, and producers, and they thought they could, just show their degree at a studio and get a gig. And as you know, that's not the case. But if you have, 30, 40, 50 movies under your belt, you have really learned your craft. And the chances of you getting going to the next level is pretty high, as opposed to the hundreds of thousands of students that are coming out trying to break into the industry.
I heard a statistic where in Utah there's, when I say something like close to 800 film students, and at least half of those go to UVU.
Well, UVU, I think, is I was part of putting that whole program together at UVU, and I graduated film school from BYU, and filmmakers, our brains are substantially different. We're pretty ADD, and we learn different than the law students or the English students. At BYU, they were very heavy laden in film theory, which to me was a big waste of time. And when they brought me over to talk to UVU, I went in and I said, hey, look, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time. are you going to have film theory? And they said yes. And I said, I'm not interested. And I started walking out, and Dennis Lisenby, who I guess he's retired now from UVU, he said, no, wait. So I explained how filmmakers' brains work, and how we have to do everything by our hands. And if we do, we have it, and we'll have it forever. So when I have hired students from UVU, and I've hired them from BYU and Utah State and University of Utah. And the only ones that, if I say, go kill the baby for me and bring me abroad, a UVU student will go do it, where the other students will look at me like I've lost my mind. They have no idea what I'm talking about. Heaven forbid I ask him to, get me a spider over here on a mailbox. So it's really interesting how a lot of these film schools, they teach by reading a book, where hopefully UVU is this way now, where you walk into cinematography classroom and it's a studio. I hope they still do that. I haven't been there for a few years, but it makes it easier for me as somebody, as a potential employee or an employer, to hire you guys.
So as a DP, what are what are some skill sets that people need when they're working on set?
Well, number one, you have to be able to work 20-hour days. I've kind of gotten lazy in my age. As a DP, I try to get my guys out of there in 12 hours, even though their minimum might be 13 and a half hours. A lot of times, we work fast. I like to have my fire drills in the morning. I like to work really, really fast. And, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment at your disposal. And the one that I use the most is the watch on my hand, judging the time. So probably the thing that I do before I start a movie or a series, and that's where I'm going after this. Under here, I'm going biking. I bike a lot. I exercise a lot. As no matter what your position is in the industry, whether you're a producer, director, a DP, AD, or an actor, you really have to have incredible stamina, because it's a job that's fairly stressful, and it's a job that the hours are long. A short day is 12 hours, and I don't like to work much more than 12 hours now, just because as a DP, after my 12 hours is done, I will go look at an edit of what we shot either that morning or what we shot, previously. I'll look at an edit, and that way I can sit down with the director and go, oh, man, if we only had a close-up of the hand bringing that glass in. Well, the set's still there. Then, before you do your company move, you can go back and do that. Stamina is a big one. Knowing set politics is probably absolutely enormous. Knowing who has what position and what your position is. You technically, you have to know a whole lot as far as equipment. I don't know if are by a show of hands, is anybody going to stay in this industry? Okay, and as what positions?
My favorite
cinematographer.
So cinematographer.
Go ahead.
I want to be a storyboard artist.
Going into writing and directing.
Oh, good. So as a cinematographer, as a writer-director, hopefully you've written 13 or 14 scripts and threw the first 13 or 14 away. And hopefully then at that point you understand story. As a director, if you have a script that is incredible, you might be given the chance to direct it. So just have a really, really strong script. As a DP, hopefully before you start work, this can probably take you years. Work as a grip, work as an electrician, and then work your way into a second AC, and then a first AC, then a camera operator. And that could take you, 10 years or so. But if you do that, you'll have an incredible background, and you will be able to really communicate with your gaffer, no matter where you are in the world. A lot of times, sometimes if I'm in the United States, I have the luxury of bringing my gaffer, my key grip with me. Sometimes, when I leave the country, I pretty much have to hire somebody outside this country just for the expense of it. But the more you know as a cinematographer of all the toys that you get to play with, you're going to have 3 18-wheelers full of grip, electrical, and the camera equipment that you have that you get to play with, and it's really you that runs the set. You've got to be a really strong personality. You've got to be able to take charge, and hopefully you've had a lot of time with the director to spend a couple weeks going scene by scene by scene and really get into the director's head. And then, you'll work with a production designer, then you'll come up with colors of wardrobe and of rooms and set designing, and whether or not, your director really wants to have this camera move big, then you need to build it. You may have to build a set on, you may have to build your set on a sound stage. So in the shot, you can move the wall. So hopefully you need all that stuff worked out. But the biggest thing in this industry is pre-production, and hopefully you'll have that luxury. For you guys who want to write and direct, there are thousands of scripts on the internet. Hopefully you're reading, 1 or 2 a week, and hopefully you're just constantly writing. I think UVU teaches, is that Frank Daniels' method that they teach at UVU?
Some do.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Frank Daniels is good. My favorite, I have 3 books that I really like a lot, and one is called The Art of Dramatic Writing. It's by Leos Egri, and Leos wrote this in the 40s, and his theory of great drama is what happens internally. He's from the stage, and so everything that he did was on the stage. Then there's another person called Donna Cooper, and Donna's book is Writing Great Screenplays for Film and TV. And Cooper's theory of great drama is what happens externally. So if you read Leos Egri first, you see what's going on here, and then read Cooper, and then you see what's going on externally. And then there's Christopher Vogler, who has the writer's journey, which is pretty much the hero's journey. And I really like those, but I don't know that I would adhere to any one. There's Save the Cat. There's a bunch of really a lot of people who've really written a lot of stuff. But I would read a lot of different writers on writing screenplays, if that makes sense. So when I was in film school, there was 3 of us that we would drop everything and help all of our friends work on their student projects, and then we would ask others to work on ours, and their attitude was, well, can you pay me? And it's like, no, dude, I'm a student. You kidding me? I can't pay you. But what's interesting is the 3 of us that back then worked for free are the only 3 that are still in the industry. And I think that reason is getting back to what Bob asked is about what do you need to stay in this industry, and I think the big thing is passion. I absolutely love what I do, And if I had $12 million in the bank and I had an account that gave me $1 million a year, I would still do exactly what I'm doing right now. My alarm clock goes off at 4 in the morning. I literally jump out of bed excited to go to work. And even after, a 15, 16-hour day, if I'm driving home at 1 o'clock in the morning, I see some 110-foot condors up there with some, 12Ks, I'll always stop, just to say hi to my other buddies who are working on others' films. But if you don't have that passion, this is an incredibly tough industry to survive in. You really have to have that passion. And how do you know if you have that passion? Well, no matter what you're going to school for, if you're constantly thinking about it and filming and filming and filming, then I say you have that passion. If your attitude is, well, we'll see, then I would look at something else. It's a tough industry, but you get to travel all around the world, and you get to hang out with some pretty cool people. And whether they're leaders of countries or A-list movie stars, or it's a pretty cool gig.
What about the other side of it, though, where you're doing like industrials or just commercials? That's your goal.
Oh, I love commercials. Val, you want to be a DP? Okay, you're going to love commercials, because commercials, you can take 12 hours to light one set. It's going to look absolutely gorgeous. When you're doing a movie or a TV series, and an hour show, you're doing pretty much 8 to 10 pages a day. 99% of the time, you go when it's good enough to go. On a commercial, you go when you're good and ready to go. You get to really take your time and you get to hone in. The problem, though, with commercials nowadays, as a DP, when we were shooting film, we were kind of the kings of the world. Now we're kind of low on the totem pole as directors of photography, because, you have these digital cameras now. They're easy to push the button to turn it on. That's hard to figure out. And then you have these monitors that are 45 inches wide. And, people can start looking to see exactly how it's going to look. And that's going to drive you nuts. When you're doing a commercial, I kid you not, you have 20 people, whether they're account executives or ad executives or copywriters or whoever, for the commercial, they're all making 6 figures a year, and they will come up, something will be here, and they'll twist it a little bit and say, oh, that's much better, even though you can hardly see it. And that's going to drive you absolutely bonkers. So industrials, I've done hundreds of industrials. Some of those are pretty fun. A lot of it's fairly just technical. As a DP, you try to mix up your lighting. I like the look of mixing my 56 with my 3200 Kelvin. I like the blue and the orange. I like to do that. So, but you're gonna love doing commercials. Industrials pay the bills. Commercials pay a lot. You'll get your rate on a commercial, and you'll have, for a 30-second commercial, you may have 2 weeks of from the time you start filming it to the time you're done. And that 2 weeks, you may only have 8 shots in there. So every shot you can make look incredible. So those are fun.
Good stuff. So with these guys figuring out, where they want to go, and some are very clear and distinct in what they want to do. Any guidance as far as trying out other jobs? I mean, besides doing the DP stuff and the electric?
Well, I would, it depends on if you want to be a producer, start off, I can't tell you, and I'm sure Bob can tell you this too, or Professor Bob, I bet he'll tell you this too. I can't tell you how many production assistants that I have worked for that started low on the totem pole, and 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, they are the producer and they're hiring me because, you know, they worked with me and I treat people really, really well. And they just worked their way up really quick. If you want to be a producer, I would start off as a production assistant and go to a, you know, a second, you know, key, and then go to your key PA, then first key PA, and then go into a second AD, and then first AD, and then production management, and then producing. And if you keep pretty busy, you can climb up the ladder fairly quickly. If you get with a production company, if you do an internship with a production company in LA, and you show what a hard worker you are, then you might be able to start off as an associate producer, which is kind of a gopher, you know, an assistant to all the producers. But then after a couple of those movies, you work up in the food chain and end up line producing, or, you know, doing producing. But the ones who are typically the best producers, the best directors, the best DPs that I know have all held a lot of jobs on a set, whether or not it was in the art department or in props or as a grip or electrician, or, you know, holding a boom and, you know, and sound. Try to do as many things as you can on set, especially as a DP or a director or a producer, just so you can communicate. If you want to be an editor, that's probably the easiest way to break into the industry right now. If you want to be an editor or a director, what I highly, highly recommend, if you don't play an instrument, take lessons, take piano lessons or guitar lessons or drum lessons, because everything, whether you're editing or shooting or directing, everything is all rhythmic. The best editor that I've worked with, my favorite editor down in LA, he was a professional musician also. And, you know, I'm sitting there, you know, feeling the rhythm. And when I do that, you know, to snap to cut, he's already there on top of it. And I had an editor once that technically knew more about the computers and how they work and how they run than anybody I've ever met. But the poor guy had no sense of rhythm. And I literally would count, okay, feel it, 1 and 2 and cut. And he couldn't do it. The nicest guy in the world, he wanted it so bad. So hopefully he's taken, you know, some lessons. But it's all rhythm. And, you know, and I've been on sets where, you know, I have a dolly shot, and I'll take my phone out and I will play the song that the director and I have found out that it's going to go underneath this, so we can all get into that movement. So you can get into that nice, whether it's slow or if it's a whip pan or if it's fast, just so it works with the music that the director has in mind. That makes sense? Yeah,
that helps. So pre-production, because Mike also directs quite a bit, and you use a lot of storyboards?
I do, actually. And if you guys want to save your behind, have your first week completely storyboarded. Whether you're a director or a DP, make sure your first week is storyboarded. Because after that first week, everybody's kind of sensing how you work and whether or not you know what you're doing. And if you have your first week planned out to a T, then after that, they'll lighten up and they'll let a lot more go. I have storyboards a lot. Anytime I do a lot of stunt work, a lot of special effects. 100% of those are storyboarded. And then I will have storyboards, and sometimes I throw the storyboards away. I did a movie once with the director and we had 12 shots set up. We looked at our watch. We go into overtime in 20 minutes. And we couldn't afford going into overtime. There's no way I'm going to do 12 setups in 20 minutes. So I looked at it and I told the director, I said, Mike, let me try something here. And I grabbed my Steadicam guy and I walked it through, and it's my favorite shot in the movie, and it's a oneer. It starts off, and I start off on a close-up of an amplifier. I come back where I pick up a guy, he picks up a chord, he walks across the set, and he's saying something to something. So it was all this interaction of all these people coming in and out of the scene, and we did it in 20 minutes, and it was my favorite shot of the film. And a lot of times you have that, but it's always nice to have the fallback of having a storyboard. A lot of guys, there are some directors who won't storyboard anything, and that's a big mistake. But again, if you're shooting a half a page a day, then you don't really have to storyboard. But if you're responsible for $250,000 a day that's being spent, that's a big responsibility for you as a director, as an assistant director, as a director of photography. That's a huge, responsibility. And of course, the producer has a fiduciary responsibility, and he's going to be writing you. So, storyboard. I'm big on storyboards to start off with, and the whole movie will pretty much. I'll sit down with the director and really find out what's the rhythm, what's the feel, and then we'll start talking how to cover it and shots and lens wise. Well, do you want a shallow depth field? Do you want you want everything in focus, and then because you understand circle of confusion, then you know what your choices of as far as f-stop, lens, and the sensor size. So yeah, storyboard, and of course when you do a commercial, Val, everything is storyboard, and you try to match that frame of the storyboard with what you're filming, because you have guys who are making a couple $100,000 a year and they're drawing these things, and you have to play the politics. You may have a better idea. Always go with what they want first, and then you can implement your idea on a commercial. If it's a TV show, or if it's a TV series, the DP is actually more in charge of the look than the director. The director in a TV series is kind of more of a babysitter, and the DP is really the one that's responsible for how the whole look is, because you will have a new director for every episode. And they're going to come in and they're going to say to you, okay, Val, this is what I want. This is how I think we should have the flow. And then you are the one that just pretty much decides how to cover it.
We have about 5 minutes left. Anybody have any questions for Mike?
With these storyboard artists, are you doing it yourself, or are you hiring outside?
Yes. What I do is we'll do stick figures first, and if it's anything complicated, then we'll bring in a professional storyboard artist. But I'd say depends on the budget. If it's a good sized budget film, then yeah, we'll have a storyboard artist in the room with the director, the DP, the production designer. And probably, sets and props will be in there too.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Come on, guys, you got an encyclopedia sitting here.
Well, I guess if nobody's going to ask any questions, I might as well just. So I actually want to be a storyboard artist. That's why I ask about it. Do you have any idea how it comes to be that somebody becomes a storyboard artist, or how basically they can get their name out there?
Yeah, right now I would go to utahfilm.gov. Where are you right now? Where do you live?
I live in Provo.
Okay, go to utahfilm.gov and sign up as a storyboard artist, and then create a website, and just look at 30 different movies and draw 30, 60 different storyboards, put them up there, as an example of your work. And that's probably the best way. And then get a list of the directors that are coming into the state. And if you go to the economic division, you can find out months in advance what films have been pre-qualified for the incentives here in Utah. And then, you know, just get a hold of the producer or director or the DP and let them know that you're here and this is your website. Take a look at what you've done. But I love working with storyboard artists.
Okay.
Say a friend of mine, that's all I want to do is be a storyboard artist. He's great doing cartoons, all kinds of stuff. And he did the storyboard for The Crow 4. They paid him $900 flat fee, and he wound up doing 1,100 slides by the time it was done. So he didn't even make $1 a slide by the time he was done. But he gets calls all the time from all over the world now. He's really, really good.
So that first one, yeah, the first couple, you're going to have to work fairly inexpensively. And, you know, your first dozen movies, you're probably going to be working on really, really low budget movies that are shooting 20-hour days. My longest day was 32 hours straight. And that was actually, Bob, you worked on that. That was actually for a Fox. That was actually for a Fox TV pilot. 32 hours straight. So you're going to be, you'll all pay your dues, and hopefully you'll have a great personality. And I've only fired one person. I've never let anybody go because they didn't know what they were doing. I've always taken the time to help them out and to teach them and show them. The only time I've ever let anybody go is because of their really crappy attitude. So just be nice to everybody. Life's too short. You spend too many hours with these people, and you know, if you do a TV series or a feature film and you're with each other for 20 weeks, you're probably going to cry when you leave. You know, it's fairly emotional when you all say goodbye, and you know when you're all never going to be together again at the same time. So that, that's tough.
So within you talk about being willing to teach people. So you're saying that people should be willing to learn too.
Oh, if you're not willing to learn, you be a truck driver, delivery boy for FedEx, or something where you can be alone.
Okay, we're going to get cut off here. We're going to get cut off here. We're going to get cut off real quick.
Okay.
Just remind you, give me the same thing, paper on Mike and all the wonderful wisdom he has by Saturday, and I'll make this recording available to everybody. So thanks again, Mike. Appreciate it.
Oh, good talking to you guys. Nice, and good luck, guys.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.